where it's everything. Like there's a lot of ones where you have to look at it and really decide like what else can I do. So when you start a problem, you always first want to look for is, can you take anything out? That is always step one. So on the first one, number wise, is there a number that divides 28 and 63? What are numbers that divide 63? 9 does. What else does? 7. Does 9 go into 28? 9? No, 7. Does 7 go into 28? Yes. So when you are looking at these and you're trying to figure out what can you take out, truthfully, look at the goofier number, like 63. Because if you can find something that divides 63, like there's less options, then you just check to see, hey, it also goes into 28. Variable wise, can we take out any A's? No. B's. 1B. So you take out the 7. What's 28 divided by 7? 4. And then we didn't take out any A's, so that's still going to be A squared. We had 1B. We took 1B out. Are there any B's left? No. Second one, what's negative 63 divided by 7? Negative 9. We had a B. We took it out. Do we have any B's left? No. So always, always, always look for a greatest common factor. And then kind of the theme on this sheet, the idea of completely means, can you do more? So on a lot of these, you can do more, specifically a lot of the ones like this, because this is super duper special. Because what kind of number is 9? A perfect square. Is 4a squared also a perfect square? Yes, and you're minusing. So if you ever have a perfect square minus a perfect square, you can always split it up more, because 4a squared has to come from 2a and 2a. If you have a minus sign at the end, do we have same signs or opposite signs? Opposite. So how can we multiply to 9 but then get nothing in the middle? 3 and 3. So the reason that this has nothing in the middle is because your parentheses are the exact same, one positive, one negative. So if you ever have a perfect square minus a perfect square, it is always going to be the same thing, 1 plus 1 minus. If you took out something at the beginning, it stays at the beginning. So that 7b is still there. If you're ever not sure this is right, how do you check these? Yeah, you distribute. You multiply it all back out. The next one, number 3, this one has 4 terms. If you have 4 terms, there's only one option. So up top here, 4 terms is by grouping. That's what we did on Thursday. So grouping means instead of looking at all 4, you just look at the first 2 and see what can you take out. So looking at just the first 2, what can we take out? X squared. We still have an x left over because we had x to the third. We took out x squared. What's going to be left over if 2x squared y? 2y. Then you look at the second 2 and you see what can you take out. So what can come out in negative 4x, negative 8y? Negative 4. So if your first number is a negative, you take out the negative. What's going to be left over of negative 4x? X. What's going to be left over of negative 8y? Plus 2y. And then the thing about grouping is just the GCF 3 times. So you look at the first 2, what can you take out? You look at the second 2, what can you take out? And now we have these 2 parentheses that are the same, which means we can take it out. So now we can take out an x plus 2y. And we still have to write what's left over. So if the x plus 2y is gone, what's left over of our first term? X squared. What's left over of our second term? Minus 4. So factoring by grouping is always first 2, second 2, and then those 2 should be the same if you did it correctly. When we did this on Thursday, we were done here. The annoying part about this sheet is x squared minus 4. That is still perfect squares, because is x squared a perfect square? Is 4 a perfect square? Do we have opposite signs? Yeah. So if you have a perfect square minus a perfect square, you can always break it down again. X squared is going to split into x and x. How do you get a minus 4 with nothing in the middle? Plus 2 minus 2. And again, stuff you already had is just going to stay. So you can break down the x squared minus 4 again, but that doesn't take away from the fact that we had x plus 2y at the beginning. So the reason that this sheet is confusing and the reason we're doing half of it together is most of these, like, you have to do multiple things. But the first thing you always look for is what can you take out? So can we take anything out of 48 and 3? What number? 3. 3 divides 48 and 3. And then you look at your variables. We have w to the 5th and then a w. So what else can we take out? A w. When you take out numbers divide, so it's 48 divided by 3, 16. Your exponents are actually easier. We had w to the 5th. We took away 1. What's left over? W to the 4th. And then what's 3 divided by 3? Minus 1. Do we have any w's left over? No. So always look for your greatest common factor first. And then look to see, like, hey, what else can we do? Hopefully 16, is that a nice number? Is 1 a perfect square? Are they minusing? Is w to the 4th a perfect square? Yeah. So again, this sheet is just extra steps because we can split this more. Where would you get a 16 w to the 4th? What gives you the 16? 4 and 4. What gives you the w to the 4th? W squared. So you always just split your exponents. How would you get a minus 1 with nothing in the middle? Minus 1 plus 1. So the idea that there's a minus sign at the end, you have to have opposite signs. In order to get those opposite signs with nothing in the middle, they have to be the same number. That 3w was taken out, so it still hangs out in front. And again, this sheet is just kind of extra because is there anything else we can do? Do you see how this one at the very end, the 4w squared minus 1, are those both still perfect squares? Yeah. 4w squared, what would you split that into? 2w and 2w. And then how do you get a minus 1? Plus 1 minus 1. Anything else you already had is still just going to hang out in front. The likelihood of something like this is like one question on a quiz, maybe. The idea of factoring is you just want to break it down. This sheet just has all of it in there, and you kind of just have to be patient and go step by step and make sure you kind of just like you do one thing, check to see if you can do more. On number 7, is there a greatest common factor? 4x squared. So 4 divides all those numbers. And then when you look at your exponents, you can take out an x squared. 8 divided by 4 is 2. And then we still have 2 more x's left over. 4 divided by 4 is 1. We have 1 x left over. 24 divided by 4 is 6, right? No x's left over.
It's so weird, like you're writing and then it shows up after you're done writing.
Yeah. Can this be broken down more? Yes. 2x squared, what would our parentheses have to start with? 2x and an x. So when you take something out, remember, you're looking at your new numbers now. So we're not worried about the 24. We're worried about the 6. If we are going to get 6 at the end, what multiplies and gives us a 6? 2 and 3, or what else could it be? 1 and 6. Now, do either of those, like with this 2 in front right here, remember, we can't just necessarily look at this and be like, oh, it has to be these two numbers. These are the ones you have to FOIL out. With it being a minus sign, do we have same signs or opposite signs? Opposite. So you literally just throw in opposite signs and then pick two numbers. Do you guys want to do the 2 and the 3 or the 1 and the 6?
1 and 6.
How do we know if that's right or not? You FOIL it out. Based on last hour, just remembering to FOIL it out, like that'll save you so much time because when you FOIL, you get your 2x squared. 2x times negative 6 is negative 12x plus 1x minus 6. Look to the middle. What's negative 12 plus 1? Negative 11. We want a negative 1. Is our number right? No. So what can we change on this to try something else? You could switch the 6 and the 1. Could we also try the 2 and the 3? Yeah. What do you guys want to do? Switch the 1 and the 6 or try the 2 and the 3? Try the 2 and the 3. You will spend more time trying to figure out it in your head than if you were to just put this down because you FOIL it out again. You get 2x squared minus 6x plus 2x minus 6. Is negative 6 plus 2 what we want with negative 1? No. So our number was wrong. So what should we switch? Should we switch our signs or switch our numbers? Switch the numbers. I'm going to go over here because I can't erase because I'm writing in marker. So now what if it's 2x plus 3 and x minus 2? The only way you can get these ones wrong is if you just stop trying. There's only so many different combinations that'll work. If you had questions on last week's packet, I'm sure it was on ones like this where you just have to keep trying. Now when you FOIL it out, there's your 2x squared minus 4x plus 3x minus 6. What's negative 4 plus 3? Negative 1. Is that what we wanted? Yes. Whatever you took out at the beginning, just make sure it's still there. So your answer is the parentheses. You guys just have to FOIL it out. And don't forget, if you take something out, you're looking at your new numbers. You're not looking at your original numbers. You're looking at the new, smaller numbers to figure it out. So as long as you have perseverance, there's only so many different ways you can put these 4 numbers into those 2 spots. So eventually you have to find it. Okay, next one. 4 terms. What's the only way we can factor something with 4 terms? Grouping. If you have 4 terms, it only can go by looking at the first 2. Looking at the first 2 only, what can we take out? X squared. And that'll leave us with x plus 3. Look at the second 2, minus 5. Number-wise, if it starts with a negative, take out a negative. That'll leave us with x. What's negative 15 divided by negative 5? Plus 3. And then you can take out one more thing. Now what do they have in common? They both have the x plus 3. So when you take out the x plus 3, it's like it's gone. So the x plus 3 was taken out in front. So what's left over of our first term? What's left over of our second term? Whenever you factor these, remember it's always an inside outside thing. So inside of our parentheses was x plus 3. Outside of our parentheses was x squared minus 5. Can either of these be broken down anymore? No, 5 is not a perfect square. So not everything can go multiple times. You really got to look to see what's left over. 5's not a perfect square, so we can't split it into the 2 and 2 or the 1 and the 1. All right, flip it on over. Number 11. Step 1, can we take anything out? What can we take out? A. If you take an A out, what's left of AB squared? B squared. What's left of minus A? Minus 1. So when you take out something, you can't lose a space. You started with 2 spots, we still have to have 2 spots on the inside. Can we factor b squared minus 1 anymore? Yeah, 1 is a perfect square. We're minusing. So if it's b squared, what would your parentheses have to start with? B and b. How do you get a minus 1 with nothing in the middle? Plus 1, minus 1. And don't forget, you still have that a hanging out in front. So recognizing the difference of perfect squares, very repetitive. As long as you recognize that pattern, you don't even really have to think about it. It's 2 parentheses, 1 plus 1 minus. Next one, number wise, what can we take out of 24 and 36? So there's lots of different options that you can take out. Take the biggest one, 2 goes in, 3 goes in, 4 goes in, not 4, but take the biggest one out. Variable wise, what can we take away from A, B, A, C? A, they both have an A left over. So 24AB, what's 24 divided by 6? 4B. The A is in front. Plus 5C. Can we break this down anymore? No. If you don't have a squared, chances are you're not going to be able to factor it down more. I think there's one other question on this sheet where after you take it out, you're just done because you're not going to have a squared there that you can split. You'll know you took out the right number because 4 and 5, nothing else divides 4 and 5. So you should be able to kind of look at it and gauge if it's right or not. On number 15, do we have a greatest common factor? Yeah, we can take out an x. X cubed now is x squared minus 10x squared is now minus 10x plus 21. And then the thing that makes this sheet just trickier than what you did before is you always want to look to see, can you do more? So this is an x squared, so we can probably break it down more. To get an x squared, what would our parentheses have to start with? X and x. These are the really nice ones because you can kind of just follow those main rules. If you have a plus sign at the end, we have same signs or opposite signs. Same signs, look to the middle. What do they both have to be? Minus. What number do we have to multiply to? 21. So it's either 1 and 21, or what else could it be? 3 and 7. When you just have an x and an x, you should be able to just look at your list and know, like, hey, it has to be these two numbers. What two numbers does it have to be? 3 and 7 is 10. Again, because these are just starting with regular x's, you can just see your middle number. If you have a number in front of one of those x's, you wouldn't be able to just see it off of your list. What still needs to hang out in front of these parentheses? An x. So if you take it out at the beginning, make sure it just stays in front. All right, next one. Do we have a greatest common factor? No. So this is as annoying as it can get, because in order to get that 8m squared, what could our parentheses start with? 4m and 2m. Or it could be 8 and 1. So these are the ones you literally just kind of got to persevere, and eventually you find it. Because we look at the end. Do we have same signs or opposite signs? Opposite signs. Just put them in there. And then what do we have to multiply to? 3. What's the only thing that multiplies to 3? 3 and 1. And you just put them in there. Like, yes, 1 minus 3 is a 2, but because of this 8 in front, we're not guaranteed where anything is going to go. We know this is right by foiling it out. So when we foil it out, we get our 8m squared. 4m times negative 3 is negative 12m plus 2m minus 3. Look to the middle. Is that what we want? No, it's negative 10m. So our number is wrong. As a general rule, if your number is wrong, do we want to switch our signs or switch our numbers? Switch the numbers. If your number is wrong, switch the numbers. So now I'm just going to do plus 3 and then 2m minus 1. Again, we're not going to be guaranteed if this works or not because you just got to FOIL it out. So we still get our 8m squared minus 4m plus 6m minus 3. What's negative 4 plus 6? Positive 2. Is that what we want? Yes. That won't always work. Like, if these were just m's, that can work. I usually don't go about it that way because if there's numbers in here, like multiplying by a 4 can make things get weird. So that's why I was just say FOIL these ones out. But yeah, you can start with that, but just make sure you FOIL it out to check. Make sure you guys are like boxing in your final answer. Remember, your foiling is not your answer. Your foiling is you just checking it. On number 19, what do we do first? Take out the 5xy. So always look for what you can take out first and make sure you're writing what's left over. So 5 divided by 5 is 1. What will x cubed turn into? And do we have any y's left over? No. 5 divided by 5 is 1. Do we have any x's left over? Do we have any y's left over? No. So look for what you can take out first, write what's left over, and then just see, can I break that down anymore? What's special about x squared and 1? They're perfect squares. If you're minusing, it'll always be the same thing. X plus 1, x minus 1. The only way you can get nothing in the middle is if you have same parentheses, opposite signs. The 5xy just hangs out in front. Second to last one, so 21. What's our only option to factor this guy? Grouping. If you see 4 terms, you just have to do the 4 terms where you look at the first two. What can we take out of 5a squared 10ab? 5a. So number-wise, look to see what divides them both. Variable-wise, it's your smallest exponent, so that will leave us with a plus 2b. Look at the second two. What can we take out? minus 3. So if you start with the negative, like that's a negative 3a, take out the negative. Negative divided by a negative is positive. Negative 3 divided by negative 6 divided by negative 3 is again positive, and we didn't change our variables at all. What will our first parenthesis end up being? A plus 2b. What is our second parenthesis going to be? Because again, they both have an a plus 2b, so that was moved to the front. So that's why we can just write what was left over. Last one. Do we have a greatest common factor? Nope. So we just jump right into our two parentheses. To get x squared, what do we have to start with? X and x. These are as nice as they get because you can kind of like use all your sign rules. We have a minus sign at the end. So do we have same signs or opposite signs? Opposite. What number do we have to multiply to? 78. So if you don't know what to do, your list always starts with 1 and 78. And then you literally just divide. So 78 divided by 2, that works. 78 divided by 3, that works. 78 divided by 4 is a decimal, so you don't write it down. 78 divided by 5, also a decimal. 78 divided by 6, 13. Do any other numbers go into 78? Nope, 9 will be a decimal too. I think that's it on our list. Do any of those numbers work to give us the 7? 6 and 13. So because there's just x and x, this is where you can just be like, okay, 13 minus 6 is 7. If we want to end at a negative 7, where should the 13 go? With the negative. So when things are just x and x, that's when you can use all this, like, I need my bigger number here. If you have numbers in front of those x's, it kind of throws it all off, though. So just make sure you're foiling to check it out. Again, your quiz is not going to have all of this where it's like everything every time, but there might be one or two. So this sheet for you today is you guys finish it. So you should just have 12 problems left. We did 12. You guys do the other 12. Everything is due on Wednesday when you take your quiz. Tomorrow we are